can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than me, the lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm totally sorry that we're having these connection issues tonight. We are live now. It is the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by the Fantasy Football Players Championship at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Hi, hello, and welcome. This is the FFPC's High Stakes Fantasy Football Players Championship over at myffpc.com. I'm Eric Balkman, hsffhour.com, at Eric Balkman, at ERICBALKMAN. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm live. This is so wild that we're actually live tonight. So without further ado here, ladies and gentlemen, we are presenting the FFPC Players Championship Main Event Championship Round and the FantasyPros Championship Players FantasyPros Championship Championship Round tonight. Way later than we should, and I totally apologize for that. I don't know what's going on with my internet. The fact that we're live right now is totally unbelievable. So without further ado, I kick it over to the incomparable Players Championship KFFSC. God, I can't even believe I'm talking about this tonight. The KFFSC incomparable Players Championship Players Commissioner. It's Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. Ferrell, unbelievable that we're finally live tonight. And I'm so sorry it's happening. Holy cow.
I have always wanted to do a show with Troy Aikman, and this is probably as close as I'll ever get. All you got to do when in those moments, Bulky, is you got to say they really like that guy. And, I really like that guy. That's all you need to do. You're doing well. Good job, Bucky.
I wish I could do it as well as Troy Aikman has been doing it on Monday Night Football with Joe Buck. This is a train wreck tonight. It's an absolute train wreck, and I totally apologize.
We got a lot of great guys in the message. We're doing fine, Bucky.
The Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship is where to go. KFFSC.com, and we have the Sweet 16. We have the Super Sunday Championship going on. Super Bowl Sunday coming up in, I don't know, man.
Soon.
Just over two months. So about 2.5 months right now at the Caesars, Southern Indiana.
Yep.
I'm trying to get there. I don't know if it's going to happen, but holy cow, Ferrell, this is filling up fast. The luminaries of not only the FFPC and the KFFSC are filling this up. This is going to be a massive undertaking for you, and you're ready for it. It's going to be awesome.
It's Bucky. The sales have been a little brisk. Some new names in the room and guys that have been there before. We're seeking our third champion this year. Doc Hutcherson, defending champion. We've had Bednar and Stacey Perez won. And so it's a good group that are coming, and it's a great time to reflect on this season and get ready for that event. It's certainly not too early to draft because there's so much going on that when we get to it tonight, it's like an unveiling of next year. And those who have had a rough season like me, don't turn your back on what's going on in fantasy football right now. Pay attention, because these are some glory games as we finish these last 3 games of the season.
Yeah, it's glory games. It's like here's the thing. Like you cannot win the world championship every year in the FFPC. You cannot win the world championship in the KFFSC every single year. However, what you can do is make a good showing and continue on to fantasy glory. Whether
we don't pretend, Balky, to be a world championship.
No, you should.
We pretend to be a state championship but it's worthwhile winning. We're going to give you a trophy that you'll be mighty proud of, and we're going to make sure everybody knows your name. Hey, speaking of who's in the lead in the KFFSC, your old pals Carter Harrell and Derek Embry, who you've played auction leagues against forever, won main event team in the KFFSC. They made the playoffs first week. They threw out 238 points and are now in first place as we prepare for our second week of our main event championship. We come in a week ahead of the FFPC. We're a 4-week race. But enough about that. We've got a great FFPC guest to come in.
Yeah.
We got FFPC starts and yeah. But look, if you want to take all that you've learned this year, come apply it with us Super Bowl weekend.
Super Bowl weekend is the place where you want to be at in the KFFSC in Louisville, Southern Indiana. That is where the center of the high stakes fantasy football universe will be. And make sure you're registering over at kffsc.com to play in the Super Sunday events. Before we can crown a champion in the Super Sunday in the KFFSC, we have to crown a champion, not only in the KFFSC main event, but the FFPC main event and the FantasyPros Championship main event. And one of the guys who has been crushing it in the FFPC main event has been Ron Ybarra, who is going to join us right now, ladies and gentlemen. He finished 16th place overall in the FFPC main event and is crushing it and looking forward to maybe $1 million payday in the FFPC main event. Ron, welcome in. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I apologize for the late start, but I'm so glad to have you tonight. How in the hell are you? Welcome into the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. No, terrific. Looking forward to some exciting weeks ahead, aren't we? Great.
How weird was it last night? And I always, we always want to kick off the FFPC main event and the FantasyPros Championship. We always want to kick it off right to a massive start. Last night was not a massive start. Wow. 12-6 Rams over the Niners last night. Outside of Puka Nacua, you were probably disappointed, but this is what happens at fantasy football. How are your teams looking? How did you feel about what happened last night?
Well, last night was such a shock, especially the Rams coming off of that huge scoring event that they had the week before. That was huge. We had some rain there in San Francisco, but I don't think that really affected the game. I was shocked to see what Deebo Samuel did out there. Cooper Kupp with a goose egg. I mean, these are guys. That are just. I feel for them. I've been there before. I think we all have. You have high expectations for your players, and then especially if you've gotten this far and you're looking at the potential of being in a championship and having one of those guys. That's gonna be hard to recover from. Some of these guys, I'll tell you. So what a shock, yeah.
I like that new name, Deebo Samuel. I believe that's exactly where we should be with it. I'm debuting him from my third-round draft pick. Ron, in football, sometimes we throw on a film to look at a prospect, and you say, well, look at that. I've seen 2 plays, and he's the guy. See, as soon as you started talking, listen to that velvety smooth voice, Balky. That was worth waiting for. You're a pro at this. Balky usually has this question. I want you to ask your regular question, Balky, about what goes on in the private world of our guest tonight and his business acumen. But I would also like you to ask him if he's got much broadcast experience.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Go ahead, Ron, and I'll let you answer that. I have a few more follow-up questions, but this is great to have you on tonight for sure. And I'll say this just before we go any further. My son, and I've said this on the show several times. My son, 11 years old. This is the first time he's playing fantasy football this year. He was going against George Kittle and Cooper Kupp last night. I have not seen my son light up like the world was on fire this morning. And I said, "Hey, son, Cooper Kupp got a bagel last night." And he knew he didn't have anything in the first half, but to see what happened in the second half last night was unbelievable. But I think, Ron, the thing we have to take away from this is it's a weird start. This doesn't normally happen, and we can't necessarily take away a ton of what happened in the game last night because of the rain and everything going on with the Niners offense and then Cooper Kupp or whatever. it was a really bizarre start to the championship round.
No doubt about it. And there's some very disappointed, some very excited people, like your 11-year-old son. That had been great for him to.
He loved it.
See that.
By the way, he is a legal player in Kentucky when escorted with a parent. We can, not in the casino, but we can get him up there in northern Kentucky.
No.
Well, congrats on all the great work you've done this year, Ron, and your league title. When I walked away from the table after I drafted this year, I felt pretty good about my teams.
Yeah.
One team that I thought was my weakest turned out to be my best at the end. Mm-hmm. At the end, they all reported to the sick bay. But and I was the sickest one because of the lineups that I made. We'll get to talk about lineups. How'd you feel about this team after you put it together? Because after all, after the regular season, you were 16th among how many teams, Balky?
Thousands.
Yeah, Balky's lost count of the teams. So how did you feel when you walked away from the table?
In the championship round alone, it's just under 1,000 teams that are competing for $1 million grand prize with Ron this year.
Wow, crazy! That's a lot of people, and I tell you what, it's really an honor, and it's really kind of daunting when you think about some of the players that are in this league that have been doing it at a very high level for a long time. I'm happy to be here with them. I'm glad I still have a chance to do something here this year. But I think you asked the question, how did I feel coming away from the table after the draft? And you always walk away, and one of the first things I did, of course, is I went to the site to see how the site graded me, and it's just for the hell of it, right? And I got a B-, guys.
Oh, they do. Yeah, they do have that thing.
I got a B-. I don't know, whatever. But I felt pretty good. Here's the thing: is that I don't play in that many fantasy leagues anymore. I think I've got a total of 3, but I have Saquon Barkley in all 3 of my leagues. Yeah. I had him rated, honestly, him and Chase and a few others higher than most people did, I think. So for me, there was one league I had to take him. I think I took him like 2nd overall because I look at the league and you look at who you're playing against and so forth. Yeah. I came
better get back in that league because you'll have to take him 1st overall in 2025. So
Farrell, hang on to that because I want to lead into this in a little bit. But keep going, Ron.
Sure. No. So I was looking for Saquon Barkley. So coming up I was the number 8 hole, right? Coming up to number 8 pick, and I had to I had Chase ranked pretty high. I had him in the top 5 or 6, and I had to make a decision. Which one of these guys? I had them pretty close. Which one of these guys has the best chance of falling to me in the 2nd round? And I looking at some of the drafts that I'd seen and some of the ratings that some of the quote unquote experts had out there, I felt like Saquon Barkley could be that guy. I know it was a gamble, but I took it and was absolutely elated. I was beside myself when I saw the coming back to me in the 2nd round. I'm going, oh my God, he's going to be there, and boom! I expected that run on tight ends in this league to come there right at the end of the 1st round, beginning of the 2nd round. So wow, that was
nice
exciting to see that happen. That was exciting to happen for sure.
So Ron, I want to piggyback on that question. John Terry was the guest on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown last week, not this past week. Yeah. And I asked him, because he's an early drafter, and I said, when we flip the calendar to 2025 in January, who is going to be the first overall pick in FFPC drafts? Is it going to be Jamar Chase, who has been the best wide receiver all year? Is it going to be Saquon Barkley, who has been the best running back all year? Is it going to be Brock Bowers, who has been the best tight end all year? Now, little known fact, you have all those guys on your team that is competing for $1 million grand prize. You drafted all of them. Jamar Chase at the 108, Saquon Barkley at the 205, Brock Bowers at the 508. Fast forward, whatever, to the FFPC Fantasy Pros Championship in the FFPC Main Event in 2025. Which one of those guys is going to be the first overall pick? If you had the 101, would you take Chase Barkley or Bowers?
I think Barkley comes off the board first. I think all three of those guys are going to go in the top 5. I think it's foregone conclusion that they all go in the top 5. But I think Barkley goes number 1. I think Chase could be number 2, number 3. And I think Bowers is there in the top 5 as well. And especially in this league, how it values tight ends, I think he's going to have to be in the top 5.
And you have all these guys on this team this year. I mean,
yeah.
like when you've been drafting in the FFPC and high stakes leagues for a decade plus, is this the best team you have ever put together, considering that not only do you have Barkley, not only do you have Chase, not only do you have Bowers, you have an amazing team behind him, my friend, competing for this $1 million grand prize.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's terrific. You know, out of those 3 guys that I've got there, you know, I have to tell you, I sit there and I think about which of the guys, you know, that I was most proud of the pick. And I don't know that one pick makes a draft. I mean, we all know that. We've done this long enough to know that. But I have to tell you, you know, coming down, I saw that tight end run, and I knew there was going to be a tight end run there in the first, second round. To me, that looked really muddled. I really liked McBride a lot, but I like the running back better. So I decided to wait a bit on a tight end. So and the guy that I had my eye on that I was really hoping that would drop to me to say round 4 or 5 was Kittle. He was going to be my guy. I thought Kittle was going to be the one that I'd take. I almost took him in the 4th round. And I went, I'm going to wait one more round. I think I picked up a running back. I think I picked up a running back there after that in the 4th round. I went, okay, I'm going to wait for Kittle to come back to me. And he went right early in the 5th round. I'm sitting here coming back. I'm going, oh, God, my next tight end on my board, I want a tight end is Brock Bowers. I've never drafted a rookie tight end ever. And I had to sit here and go, okay, I'm a Raider fan. Okay, that's an admission. We can, you know, talk about that later. But I had to talk myself into the idea of taking him. And I'm sitting here, the clock's going down. I go, please tell me, self, I'm not making a homer pick right now. Because I really
you didn't. And imagine how many quarterbacks, the Duke's mixture of quarterbacks.
There you go.
I got the Raider. I got the Raider.
Yeah, you're looking good, Balky. Flash it again, Balky, because we probably won't.
Right on, man. That's beautiful. You know, that's a thing of beauty.
Maybe we will.
Right there. Love the shield. Okay. Love it.
So, you know, Balky has buttered you up, made you feel really, really good about yourself. I got a question for you, and damn it, you better get it right. Quarterbacks this weekend.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Kyler Murray and Bo Nix. And I know who I want you to start. Yeah. He's my rookie of the year guy.
Yeah.
17 touchdowns, 8 picks. He's rushed for 4 touchdowns. He's just getting started. I'd like, you know, if you got him on waivers, good for you. If you drafted him, even better. Yeah. I think, even though it's a 3-headed running back by committee there, I think this team rolls through the wide receivers. Vele is one of those players I was talking about earlier in the show. As you're preparing for next year, Vele has a fantastic story. Maybe we can get to that. Not Williams, but the other running back, McLaughlin, is it?
Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yeah. 4.5 yards a carry this year. So, am I going to look at your team and am I going to see Bo Nix at quarterback?
You know, that's a really good question. And it's one that I've really wrestled with a lot. I've got them both ranked very close. I look at and you're right. I mean, Bo Nix, you know, he's definitely in contention rookie of the year. There's no question about that. I like the kid coming out of Oregon. I mean, I loved him. I honestly, when I sat there during the actual NFL draft, I'm going, please fall. I was hoping that he would fall to my Raiders, but he didn't quite make it.
Okay.
Okay, didn't quite make it.
Yeah, because I was wondering, okay, this is the actual NFL draft.
The NFL draft, yeah, the NFL draft.
Yeah, not fantasy. I get it.
No, fantasy draft. The NFL draft. I like Bo Nix, I guess, is my message here, and I like what he's done. He's proven me right there, but you know, and it's a tough one for me, to be really honest with you, and I haven't completely 100% settled on that selection yet of Murray. But I started also looking at New England's record against quarterbacks in the last 3 games, and they've given up something along the lines of, was it 10 touchdowns?
No, they're
10 passing touchdowns. Mm-hmm. But then again, I look at Indy, who's Nix is going to play this week, and they're both they both get them at home. But they've given up a lot of rushing yards to quarterbacks this year. So if you look at that, it's like, it's a tough one. It really, really is.
Well, I think our man's overthinking.
Am I?
No,
am
I
I
don't.
overcoaching?
No.
Okay.
Okay,
I think
hold
he's
on.
overthinking.
I'm going to say this right now. Normally, Ferrell,
Here comes the butter. Yeah.
No. Normally, I would say you're right, but I look at and Ron, you can attest to this. I think your lineup, by and large, sets itself this week. I don't think you have a lot of tough lineup decisions because your team is so loaded. However, quarterback is really, really tough, and I got to be honest with you. Starting Tuesday morning, after Monday Night Football went final, you have probably been wrestling with Nick's v. Murray all week. And I don't know if I have a good answer for you. Ferrell, you might have a good answer for Ron tonight, but I don't know if I do between Nix and Murray, who is going to have the better week this week.
I think everything is just trending really, really well. And I agree with you. New England Patriots looking at what's happened with that team, but you would think it's time for Arizona to do something, but they haven't hit 23 points in the last 3 games. Yeah. And I think your Denver gets busy and puts up a lot of points against this Colts team. They got a rookie quarterback too. He's you know what? He's got a winning record this year. He's 5-4 in the games he started. He's going to be 5-5 after this one. And I look forward to the future for him. The one thing that's hardest to do is have deep ball accuracy, and he's very good at that. So when he gets the other stuff figured out, it's going to be a lot of fun, but he's not going to figure it out against this Denver defense. So I think, I just really like what's going on. And I'm glad you brought up the Patriots. I got to sneak it in here. Turk said, what are you going to get? You're not going to get anything out of Pop Douglas. Turk was absolutely right.
I don't.
Turk was absolutely right. Read the stats, Balky. Read the stats. There's nothing there. And then we had a guy come on who was the tight end whisperer.
Yeah.
He said Hunter Henry. Yeah. And Hunter Henry has been the only Patriot bright spot.
Well, you say that, but Austin Hooper has been gumming things up for Hunter Henry. So
but Hunter Henry's still getting that 40 yards a guy.
He's doing all right.
I see what you're saying. I just want to give some credit to the tight end whisperer because he was really the only pro I liked when the pros first.
And I get that, and it makes perfect sense. You know what's funny about the quarterback situation for you, Ron, this weekend? Bo Nix is a 4.5-point favorite at home against the Colts in a game where it features a 44-point total. But if you look at Kyler Murray, he is in a game where he is a home favorite as well. 46.5 is the total, but he's a 6-point favorite. So is that a negative game script for Kyler Murray? Is it also a negative game script for Bo Nix? I don't want to read too much into it. I don't want to have paralysis by analysis here, but when you look at Nix versus Murray, I think you have to, because this is the toughest decision you're making all week. And quite frankly, I don't know if you're going to make it before Sunday morning. I think your final.
Think long, you think wrong, Balky.
I get it.
You're hurting our gas, Balky.
No, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I was hoping I would come to you and you guys would clear it up for me.
Put Nix in is the easiest decision you'll ever make.
Yeah.
So Ferrell, you are unequivocally, Ferrell is saying Nix over Murray.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll split the winnings, right?
No, sir. You keep all of those.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay.
She's come to Kentucky and join some teams. So.
Well, go to KFFSC. Listen, if you win this, or if you put up a massive point total this week, KFFSC.com is where to go and join us for the Super Sunday drafts, not only on Saturday but on Sunday as well.
Hey, I want to ask. You got a Kentucky player to ask a question about?
Do we? Should we ask? Hold on. Am I seeing
question number 5 there? If you're connected.
I am trying. My internet has been really bad.
Well, it's that running back that plays for the Commanders.
Okay. Let's do that. Yeah, Chris Rodriguez. So
Chris Rodriguez.
This is interesting because Austin Eckler was placed on IR. We know this is probably going to be a big Brian Robinson week. Before the FFPC waivers closed, you made a point of adding Chris Rodriguez on this team that was sitting in the top 20 overall heading into the championship round. Why did you make Chris Rodriguez a priority this week? Because I think a lot of FFPC players I shouldn't say a lot. I think a significant amount of FFPC players did the same thing. Why did you make this decision to make sure Rodriguez was on your team, Ron?
I think, you start looking at this going towards the end of the year, and I think it's always been, one of the things that I try to do is pick up, fresh legs. You start looking at some of these running backs that have had, a lot of wear and tear on them through the season. As teams start getting close and they know they're made the playoffs, maybe they start resting these guys a little bit. I really like what I saw out of him. I really did. And I think that's one of the things that I, kind of learned over the years is to really kind of trust my eyes, trust what I see on the field, and that. And I think there's a good possibility. In fact, there's a good possibility we could see him, in the game they got coming up this weekend, getting a lot of touches in this game as well. Just he could have been an interesting even flex play, I think, even this week. So I think that's really why I did. Did you pick him up on your team, or what are you hearing from others?
Here's the thing. There was with the KFFSC. I don't know if I picked him up on a lot of my teams, but I know I did not have a whole lot of faith in Austin Eckler for the remainder of the season.
Yeah.
But I do love the Commanders, right? I love what Jaden Daniels is putting up this week. I don't know what's going to happen because they are massive favorites in this game, and it could be a massive Brian Robinson.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
But to that point, when you look at the next 2 weeks, if anything were to happen to Brian Robinson,
right,
you're looking at some pretty massive games.
Absolutely.
to whoever that lead running back is for the Commanders, which could be Chris Rodriguez. And I'm totally with you on this because Ferrell, we have seen this in the FFPC and the KFFSC to have these guys behind the guy, and I went heavy on Patrick Taylor this week in the KFFSC, just in case something happened.
That's right.
With Isaac Garendo, I have Patrick Taylor. Ferrell, this is how you win $1 million grand prize. This is how you win the grand prize in the FFPC and KFFSC, is having these players that, don't strike you as anything, but if the opportunity presents itself, they could be league winners.
I love the acquisition. I hear from players, there's nobody left that can help me.
Right.
And that's the most foolish thing that you ever hear. I'm going to jump ahead to one question. I'm going to come back. I want, because we have someone new, Balky. I don't know if you can scroll around and see it, because we use real names over here. We got a guy working in code, all 22 FF or something like that. But he makes a real nice statement. I like this. Made it into the playoffs in 2 FFPC satellites, trying to win that ticket next year to the big show. I am too. I love that. And I love a guy coming in there. And, when you look at your career, Ron, what's this going to change? If you have the success that we think you're going to have over the next couple of weeks, what's it going to change? How's that going to change in your approach to fantasy football? And what have you learned this year? Because it seems like you've made all the great moves and the right moves in the draft, and it seems like your team has stayed healthy. And it's just a lot of things, Brian Robinson, notwithstanding. It's just talk to us a little bit about that. What's the world look like going forward from you, and how has it been different this year?
Well, how's it been different this year? I mean, every year, like you said earlier, you come out of the draft and you really don't know until the games start, what kind of team you have. I didn't really have a good, strong feeling until about week 5, how this thing was going to shape up, and that I really had some, and Bowers really started coming through for me, and I started seeing that. But, I think really one of the things that I've learned is, number one, like I said earlier, trust your eyes, trust what you see on the field. And I think, never giving up. You made a really good point about how some people say, hey, and nobody else can help my team. There's nothing else out there in the waiver wire that can improve it. You've always got to stay diligent. You've always got to stay looking for guys. Like, look at Adam Thielen, for example. That guy. Guys like that are out there on the bed. A lot of people wrote this guy off. He's an old dude and that kind of thing. You've got to constantly work your roster. You've got to constantly look at every single nook and cranny to try to upgrade, especially when you're competing at this level. These guys are the best, and leave nothing for chance. And so that's it, really. I think going forward, I think what it changes for me as far as how I look at fantasy football, I think it reinforces what I just said. but again, you said it too. It's one of those things where you really can't control it. But injuries are a big thing. I mean, look at the guys that drafted Christian McCaffrey, #1 overall, for God's sakes. I mean, the different players. Chris Godwin, I lost him in one league, and how that hurts your team. I mean, they're always got to be looking for ways to fill those voids. You've got to look for depth on your rosters. But I'll tell you what. You look at the roster that we have here this year, and I worked hard at it, no doubt. But honestly, look at the injury part of it. I've been very, very fortunate to avoid major injuries on this team, and that's something that is not completely in your control. I mean, you can look at players like you look at Walker, you look at different players that they're going to get dinged up a few times. Like there's the reason I took Zach Charbonnet in the draft, because I know here's Walker. These guys are on a good offense. I like the little spark here and there that I saw from him last year and being able to plug him in. So I think just reinforcing what I've learned over the years. But I mean, it could have easily gone the other way with a couple of injuries in the wrong parts. It could have gone completely sideways. But all these years, here eventually, even a blind squirrel gets a nut once in a while.
I don't think that's what's happening here, and I love that. And you think about Bowers, like if I had whispered to you, I said, you know what? I know that both the #1 and the #2 quarterback with your beloved Raiders are going to be on the injured list when you're in the fantasy playoffs. You probably said, oh, well, I don't want Bowers. But good players are going to step up and play really well. That's what I see in this. That's what I see in this Knicks quarterback. Quickly, is there any other difficult decision that you have this weekend?
Well, I go back to, and I think it's clearing up right now for me, but I was looking at the decisions in my roster, and honestly, I know it sounds crazy, but I was actually looking at Evans early on. I think he's going to play. I think the questionable tag's been removed, but I'm looking at Evans going, oh my goodness, is this going to be the point where I plug in Thielen into my lineup? And I mean, that was one of the decisions that I was sitting here waiting to see what was going to happen with Evans, because if he wasn't there, or say, for example, Zach Charbonnet, the fine Charbonnet wasn't going to play the game, then Thielen would be in my lineup.
So you can't get Thielen on the field despite everything that's been going on.
I don't think I'm going to be able to get him on the field, but that would be the next close decision to make.
Well, that's tough. That's a tough decision.
I think what's great about this team, and Ron, you've been playing high stakes fantasy football for a while, but you look at your team for week 15, and we talked about the quarterback decision, Knicks versus Murray. Yeah. But outside of that, Barkley, Bowers, Chase. We talked about this earlier in the interview. These three guys could be the #1 overall pick in FFPC drafts next year. You have them all in your starting lineup this week. Not to mention Alvin Kamara, the aforementioned Mike Evans, Aaron Jones, Zach Charbonnet, who, by the way, is probably going to be starting on Sunday night because Kenneth Walker is doubtful. This is an amazing starting lineup you have, and if anything goes awry, you have guys like Jerry Jeudy, who went for 235 yards receiving a couple of weeks ago.
Is Aaron Jones in the lineup as a flex?
He's in as a flex, right? Ron, I'm looking at this right now. Yes.
There's where your Thielen can go.
Who's in a flex? Oh, Aaron Jones. You're thinking Thielen over Jones? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not. No. Okay. Ferrell is thinking that.
That's because of Jones used to play for the Packers, and
You're not going to listen. If you want to talk about it starting a former Packer, I'm not going to sit here and say that's not.
Balky was over at Aaron Jones' place helping him move.
Oh, is that right?
Okay. Ironically,
no way.
No, I wasn't. Ironically, my
2 years ago,
my brother who actually passed away in this summer used to work for a moving company in the Green Bay area, and he helped. You guys probably don't remember this guy, but Josh Jones was a former second-round pick at I think NC State. Ferrell, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir.
Safety for the Packers, and he kind of washed out. But my brother did help him move. And I have a bunch of Josh Jones Packers memorabilia in my basement, because when my brother's up, he's like, I don't want this stuff. Do you want it? And he's like, yeah, I'll take it. And so I have it in my basement right now. But listen, Aaron Jones is a completely different animal. I think the thing that's great about your lineup here is if you wanted to, and I'm not saying you sit Charbonnet because I think he's going to go on Sunday night, and I think he's going to have a really good game against the Packers. But going forward here, you have, Ron, a situation where if any of these guys were to get hurt or not have a great matchup or whatever between Barkley, Kamara, Chase, Evans, Jones, Charbonnet, you have Thielen on the bench. You have Keenan Allen on the bench. Will Dissly's not playing on this week, but Dissly is on the bench and going forward could be a flex-worthy play in week 16 or week 17. This is an amazing lineup. When you think about all the formulations of teams you've had in the FFPC over the past decade, you look at this team right now, starting the championship round in the top 20. Is this the best FFPC team
no question.
you've ever assembled?
No question about it. No question about it. Absolutely the best team. And like I said, things have gone my way. You know, when a plan comes together, it's a good feeling. And I think that's kind of what I saw there. And to watch it in so many years, I mean, of playing this game, and you think you've got it nailed or whatever, and it just kind of kicks you right in the butt. So when your guys get hurt, so again, I have to tell you, it is the best team, especially at this point in the season. You know, with injuries and stuff to players, I'd have to say absolutely without a doubt.
We have talked a lot about your team for sure tonight. Sure. I want to open this up to the rest of the Fantasy Pros Championship squad owners that are watching this tonight, the FFPC Main Event owners that are watching the show tonight. Hollywood Brown, he had his window open for the Kansas City Chiefs this week. And I don't know if anybody who made it to the championship round is excited to deploy Hollywood Brown. If you have Hollywood Brown on your team, if he was a vital cog on your team, you're probably not playing for $1 million. Right. However, for those teams that are playing for $1 million that have Hopkins, that have Kelsey, how much of a monkey wrench is Hollywood Brown going to throw to these Kelsey teams, to these Hopkins teams over the course of the next 3 weeks if he ends up getting into the starting lineup either this week or the final 2 weeks of the fantasy football regular season here, Ron?
I don't think at all, really. I think if anything, not much. We always know Kelsey's going to get his. He's going to get his. I mean, we know Kelsey's going to get his stuff. Hopkins, I mean, I don't see it. And you know, the big question here really is, does he play? I mean, at what point is he actually going to play, and how much? How much are they going to let him play coming off that injury? I don't know. And so having a player coming in after an injury, there's always all these question marks. I don't think that it affects those guys much at all with the Chiefs. I really don't.
Full disclosure, Ron, on the advice that I've been giving you tonight, because it's very well thought out, and it comes from my heart and my head. My best team in the toilet bowl is 721st. With a bullet. We got 5.1 out of Jawan Jennings last night, so I just things are looking up, but looking up.
We've had them all, man. I tell you, we have those years. You know, but you keep going and you keep trying, keep scrapping, right? Trying to put the best.
I'm scrapping in the lesser leagues, and I'm glad I joined some of those classics. That's all I can tell you. So join the classics, fellas, in the spring.
I will just say real quick on the game last night, it was a whimper into the championship round for the FFPC, but sometimes when you enter with a whimper, you go out with a roar, and that is how I'm viewing these last, the remainder of week 15 and then week 16 and week 17. I think we're in for some insane stuff here, guys.
I do too.
Going forward.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Let's do this. Ron, we're talking to Ron Ybarra, the 16th place finisher in the FFPC regular season here going forward. An insane amount of talent that you have assembled this year. You've already said this is the best team that you have put together in the FFPC. I want to ask you, because you have been a longtime veteran of the FFPC, there is a little bit of a jump that you deal with anytime you're leaving your office leagues or your home leagues, your family leagues, your basement leagues, your whatever, to enter the FFPC. I always say it's not a huge step, but it is a step in competing for $1 million grand prize over the course of the last decade. what's the biggest lesson you've learned? If you were to impart any advice to people that are making this leap from their home leagues to high stakes leagues in the FFPC, what's the biggest learning curve that you've encountered? What's the biggest thing you've had to deal with?
Well, I think, it starts with the draft. And I think, you've got to look at this from the standpoint of starting with the draft and looking at it and letting it come to you usually, when you're, depending on where you're at in the, in the sequence of things, but, not trying to push things, not trying to fall in love with a player and saying, I've got to get him and, going after him that way, or becoming a homer or whatever you want to call it, but becoming a homer for a particular player, falling in love with him. Every player has some value, and remember that, and to remember that, it's going to come back your way, and don't push it. Let things happen, let things unfold in front of you, and take the best player you possibly can when it's your turn. I mean, that's it. Don't push it. And I think that's one of the best things I can say about this, particularly about the draft. And the rest of it, like we talked about earlier, is that just you got to keep digging. You got to keep, it's competitive. I mean, you're dealing with some of the best players in the entire world, and you can't miss opportunities to pick up a good player. You always got to constantly be looking to improve your team. And there's no, and we have a lot of fun with our local leagues. I mean, believe me, I have a local league I've been playing in for 20 plus years. And we have those guys won't talk to me. They right this year they're telling me that I have Martha Stewart level inside information or something like that.
Well, hopefully you won't get thrown in prison for any
I hope
that Martha Stewart.
I don't know. But so and actually, some of the guys in our local league do play in this FFPC league as well, and I've got them into the league as well. Originally, years ago into high stakes fantasy, but we love your format here. It's fantastic, and I love I wasn't real sure at first with the tight end thing. I think it was one of the things for me when I first started looking at this league is, for playing in high stakes fantasy, because they came out of a different high stakes fantasy league that went defunct, WCOFF years ago. But when I came to this league, I was a little. Looking at this, there's a lot of money involved. What's the security? Looking at how is that money secure these guys for real? And you guys are. And then looking at the format, like I said, I was a little reluctant to tight end. And I started thinking about it a little bit. I really like the two flex positions was fantastic. So I think, if guys are on the fence and they're thinking about playing, hey, give it a shot. If you don't go and jump into the main event, at least do a satellite league. At least do something. You get your feet wet in this thing, because there's nothing like it. I mean, it's a real thrill. I mean, we have a lot of fun joking around with our friends at home and having a beer and some pizza and stuff, doing our draft and so forth. But there's nothing like it.
As us lesser mortals try to win some of those leagues, we come to you for advice. So, you don't probably know what a sleeper is since you drafted all future Hall of Famers, but I would like to know one that could possibly be added to a lineup with free agency now largely a thing of the past in most leagues. We'll say just added to the lineup, not added to the team. We want a sleeper. You can't give us somebody we've already talked about because we want some new information. And then who's going to be the guy that other lesser mortals will start and suffer tremendous consequences for starting that player because he's going to have a bad week.
Oh boy, I'll tell you what. The guy. You first of all take the bad one, right? Who's going to be that guy that I think is going to let a lot of teams down this week? And I have him in one of my leagues, so I'm sitting here going, "Oh my God!" I'm thankful that I have Zach Charbonnet in that league also. I can plug in the hole. Yep. But I'm looking at Cook, and he had an awful game last time around.
Who are we talking about here?
Cook.
James Cook.
James Cook. Thank you.
He had an awful game. And I think what he was like, I didn't play him. Unfortunately, I put Charbonnet in his spot. So I played Charbonnet. That's where the inside information came from. Why did you play Cook? You should have played Charbonnet. Why'd you? So anyway, in any case, I think he's going against a really tough defense. And a lot of people are going to plug him into the lineup, and you don't have a choice. If you've drafted Cook, you're thinking, man, I took him high. I didn't. He's not like a 10th round pick or something. You took this guy. You put some draft capital on this guy. So I'm going to have to disappoint you that he's going to have another bad game this week. And I think it's going to go against that Detroit defense. He's not going to have any room. I just don't think so. So I hate to say it. I'm not going to play him in my other league. I'm I'm in a fortunate position there where I don't have to, but some guys are going to have to do that. I don't know how you get around it.
What's interesting about the James Cook thing, I have a local fantasy football show I do here in Northeast Wisconsin, and we have our studs of the week, our busts of the week, our pickups of the week, and my stud of the week for week 14 was James Cook.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
I saw a lot of great things for him this past week, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And again, the audience we're pandering to here is not playing in deep 12-team, 20-man roster leagues. And his pickup of the week, one of my co-hosts, was Ray Davis, who crushed it last week, which was really, and I said to him, like, what did you see that you said Ray Davis was your pickup of the week and James Cook was going to take a back seat? And he just said, I don't know. It was a gut feeling. And sometimes, and I was talking to another FFPC player this past week, and I said, when you get this deep into the season, there are so many injuries, there are so many different things going on, it becomes less and less predictable. And that's what makes it so fun. That's what makes it so maddening. And I could easily see, like, the thing is, we have a 54.5 point total game in this Lions-Bills game. I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
Montgomery could get 3 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I actually like quite a bit in this game, could get like 3 for 50. We could see James Cook going 20 carries for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. I could see him duplicating what he did last week, where he gets 5 to 10 carries for 30 yards and no touchdowns, and Ray Davis is the guy. Like, the Bills going forward here is such a tough thing to predict going forward. And
we didn't get our sleeper. We didn't get.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was talking over. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you here, Ron.
Hey, there's Jimmy Williams saying hello, by the way. Jimmy Williams always a great sleeper.
Yeah, he thank you, Jimmy, to your kind words here tonight, that we welcome you in. Let me welcome in the sleeper for Ron Ybarra for week 15.
What's that sleeper on?
McMillan.
Oh,
Can we call him a sleeper?
Yeah,
I
because very few people are starting him.
Yep.
Very few people are putting him in there.
I like him. I like him a lot, and, for reasons that we've already discussed, really. But I think he's the guy this week. Get him in your lineups if you got him.
Is there, because you have Kate Otten, you have Mike Evans, obviously you have the triumvirate at running back, and whether that becomes a triumvirate or not, I don't know, because Bucky Irving may not play this week, so maybe it's just Rashad White and Sean.
We gave everybody White last weekend, but
that's true. Yeah,
we did.
But Ron, what is it about McMillan specifically this week against the Chargers defense that?
I know that. I think you're going to see throwing a lot of people. They're going to throw you'll see this happen. I think they're going to throw most of their strength towards Evans, and I think that McMillan is going to just take advantage of the situation. I think he's going to have a lot of single coverage, and I think he's going to really show off his skills this week. I just have a good feeling about it, and maybe that's it. I think I don't have him on any of my leagues at all, but I look at Evans, and I'm just, again, like I said earlier, I'm a little concerned about where he is physically, and I think that he may end up being more of a decoy this week. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with McMillan.
Ron, I don't think you play any Dynasty with the FFPC. Do you play any Dynasty fantasy football?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't.
All right. So I'm going to leave this out here. This is good because we get a clean opinion here tonight. Ferrell, I'm going to ask you this as well. But Ron, when you think about next year, where Mike Evans is another year older, where Chris Godwin may or may not be a Buccaneer.
Yeah, exactly.
Year, how do you feel about Jalen McMillan in 2025?
Absolutely. He's a future, I think. You look at Chris Godwin, like you said, you look at Evans. These guys are great, and especially in their days, and they're great football players still today, but they're on the downside of their career. Let's face it. It's Mother Nature's catching up with them, and I think McMillan has shown that he could be that guy. I really do. I like him a lot. If I were playing in Dynasty, I don't play in Dynasty. I haven't done it. I dabbled in it many years ago, but it didn't work out, and I wasn't. Maybe it was a format. It was with a group of guys that I know. But I'd say if you're looking at the future, what Dynasty is, I think he's going to be that guy, and I think Baker Mayfield's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I think he's got a bright future there in Tampa for sure.
Ferrell, how do you how do you feel about Jalen?
Yeah, I love that player. You had to demonstrate patience with him this year, and I think that's something to learn about all the rookies that you take in our season-long play with redraft or waivers, is because they're going to eventually get it. And this player, it's a little daunting task to come in with that team, even though it's a small market team. There's great expectations in the receiver room, and it takes a while to gel into that. So, yeah, and now we're seeing it on the field, and I love it. I love it when you see it. So I agree with that very much. He's a target. He's a target for Dynasty for me next year.
Not that keep going, Ferrell. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, especially startups, because he's owned likely everywhere else.
Yeah. Speaking of being owned everywhere else, so I don't want to keep this bringing my son back up into the conversation.
He's a fine young man.
He is a great young man. So we're watching the Rams-Niners game last night, and I was telling him how I just missed the playoffs in one of my dynasty leagues, a private dynasty league that I play with some other FFPC players or whatever. And I said, yeah, it stinks, but yeah, maybe I'll get the number 1 pick next year, and I could take maybe Ashton Genty out of Boise State. And my son said to me, he's like, Dad, why would you take a rookie with the first overall pick next year? And I had to explain to him, like, well, son, you carry in dynasty, you carry your rosters over. You own these players. And then his eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning, and he's like, "Oh, so you could get this rookie with the first and he's just like it's like his eyes opened up to the future of fantasy football, which could be dynasty fantasy football. I don't know, but now he is super rooting for me to stink. And get this number 1 overall pick next year in the one dynasty league I did. We'll see what happens. Ron, do you follow college football at all?
No, I really don't until we start looking at towards the very, very end. We start getting towards the end of the season. I'll start watching, and a lot of it's because I'm looking for what's going to be coming up to the NFL for the following year. Is really I don't towards the end of the season. I'll put it that way. It's really when I start watching a little bit.
The best thing to do for that purpose is watch the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine.
Yeah, that's a big one. Sure. We're coming up to the end of the college football season. We have come to the end of this interview tonight, Ferrell. I know this is a weird question to ask in week 15, but I'll let you go ahead and ask Ron the final question of our talk tonight.
No, I've already asked it, buddy, about the sleeper and the player to put in the lineup.
That's true. I apologize.
You were present here. Yeah. You were with us earlier, about 10 minutes ago.
I was.
When we were. It's that chain you're wearing on the neck. The burden of being a Raider fan is so strong, Balky.
Are you the real deal, Balky? Are you a Raider fan?
No, I'm not.
He does that to honor my affliction and affection with him.
So Ferrell is the Raiders fan in the room, right? And we had John Terry, who has finished last year. He finished in the top 10, 2 different teams in the top 10 of the FantasyPros Championship. So when he was drafting out in Planet Hollywood, live in Las Vegas, he bought this at the Planet Hollywood gift shop, and he said, "Hey, anytime you guys talk Raiders on the show, you got to make sure." So I love it. I do apologize. I realize it now. You said you're sleeper. You said you're bust. I get it.
It's okay.
So here's the thing I want to leave you with tonight. Number 1, thank you for joining us tonight. Such a pleasure to pick your brain. Number 2, this is a hell of a team you have put together this year. This is different than if we were interviewing you in September or October. This is a legit thing where you have a real awesome chance at making a dent or perhaps winning the $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event. So we're rooting for you. We hope you bring it home. And the last thing I'll say, if you do win it, and if you do bring home a 7-figure grand prize, I am booking you onto the show again.
Yep.
We're going to talk all about it.
We will see you in the winner's circle, sir, and your invite to come to Kentucky will be in your inbox tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
Deal, guys. It's been great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron.
I hope to see you. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, that's the plan. Thank you, Ron. Be good, and hopefully we'll talk to you real soon.
Sounds perfect. Take care, guys. Good luck to you both.
Thank you so much. That's Ron Ybarra, the 16th place overall finisher in the FFPC main event regular season, a guy who is making a dent and perhaps winning. Ferrell, we're into the season where we could be talking already with the 7-figure win.
Yeah, I think we might have. I think we might have tonight. And all those, anyone who wasn't in the Niners and Rams, but those guys shot up the board last week.
Yeah.
And now, if you still got 600 minutes to play and you did not deploy anyone, some of those guys who did are going to fall back down, obviously. And it's going to be a lot of flux in that leaderboard. It's going to be very, very fun to watch. You got any rapid fires for us?
Well,
I know that's why Jimmy Williams tuned in late. Yeah, he loves the rapid fire.
We're going to get the rapid fires in a second. I want to selfishly ask you a question here.
Oh.
I have been historically, we get to this point in the season. I don't get that concerned with snow. I don't get that concerned with rain. Like, weather doesn't make a whole lot of difference for me. However, wind does. Like, when you get these 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts or whatever, I perk up. I maybe missed the boat last night because you had a lot of rain going on at the Big Denim at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara last night, and it affected both teams. We didn't see a touchdown all game. We saw 6 field goals, and I believe like 77 punts, something like that. When we get down to just, rain games this late in the season, I was wrong last night. It clearly affected both teams.
Yeah.
Do you change your lineups based on this heavy rain that we saw last night?
If I have a lineup like Ron has, and I don't this year, but yes, I did. I took Debo out, but I think I would have done that if it was a bright and full moon, shiny night. Some teams are equipped to play in the rain. Neither of those teams are, especially in snow. People get freaked out by snow, and they shouldn't, especially if you've got offensive players that are playing in the snow. And you've got to remember that. If you've got a defense that's defending a team, get that defense on the bench, especially here in Kentucky. But get that defense on the bench if you can, because you don't want a defense that plays in the snow. What was unusual about last night's game is that the first half ended with that torrential rain, and it immediately, as soon as the clock went to triple zeros, it quit raining. I mean, even they were gathered underneath the stands for the halftime show, and then the analysts and the announcers, the 4 of them, just walked out on the field and did the halftime show from the side of the field. So it was just a really, really weird night last night, and I felt sorry for the players, and players get injured, players get frustrated. It's a rough call playing in that. And the Rams did exactly what you needed to do. They handed the ball to their running back repetitively, and they had some good breaks where the quarterback stayed on his feet just long enough to get the ball to some receivers. It's great.
I think if you look at what happened in the game last night and you look at the final stats, I think George Kittle was fine based on, what you're used to with him. I think Juwan Jennings was semi-okay. Not the greatest, but okay. I get it. Kyron Williams, fine. Puka Nacua, fine. The outlier for me, what the hell happened with Cooper Kupp, Ferrell? And I bring this up only to say that Nacua had a really good game. Are we seeing, and I don't like to bring this up because I love Cooper Kupp, are we seeing a changing of guard at the Rams receiver totem pole where Cooper Kupp is starting to become an afterthought, or was this just an outlier game?
It was very much an outlier game. No, he's not an afterthought. He's worked hard on his body to continue to contribute in football. Now Tom Smith just made a cardinal sin of using that word washed, and this player is far from washed. So come on, Tom, you can do better than that.
Deebo Samuel, there's still life for you.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel is going to be fine as a football player. He's not going to be your 3rd round draft pick, but hey, we gave everybody Pollard last week too, and they were all talking about him being washed. Yeah.
What's happening with him this week, because he did not practice again today at Ferrell?
This I don't know, and I really hate the idea. I'm hoping it's just rest because he was a 100-yard rusher last weekend.
I think Spears has become an interesting flex. Your primary or secondary flex in the FFPC, because Pollard did not practice again today. We'll see what happens with Tennessee going forward. Let's do some rapid fire here.
Okay.
The one thing I want to, I'll bring up Jose Rodriguez right now on YouTube, who wants to know who's playing Breece Hall this week. Breece Hall, who I kind of gave up on. I didn't think he was playing at all this week. And then we hear interim coach for the Jets, Jeff Ulbrich, saying, hey, they're hopeful, and we'll see what happens for him on Sunday. The Jets are at the Jaguars, Ferrell. I think the biggest takeaway I have right now is, if you have Breece Hall and he's active, you sort of have to play him. But this is great for Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis owners, because if Hall is active, Allen's an easy sit. Isaiah Davis is an easy sit. I don't know if Breece Hall becomes an automatic play, but it does clear up the stuff that's going on with the Jets running back core right now.
Just proves you can ruin your draft in the first round.
Okay, so that's Jose Rodriguez's question here. Let's go to let's see who it is. Howie in Oakland, New Jersey. Jaden Reed or Jameson Williams? Jaden Reed, one target for him on Thursday Night Football last week against the Lions. Jameson Williams, who was the best receiver over Amon-Ra St. Brown against the Packers last week. And they are in this 54.5, 55-point total against the Bills this week. Bills and Lions, a massive fantasy football game. I don't like sitting Jaden Reed. I don't like the idea of sitting Jaden Reed with Ferrell. You look at how he has been used, or maybe more importantly, not being used, not being game planned at all, not being brought into the offensive attack, be it not only as a receiver, but as a rusher. We've seen him manufactured as a gadget player over the course of the season here. He didn't get any of that against Detroit. I don't know if it changes this week in Seattle on Sunday night. So, yeah, I think I'm sitting Jaden Reed in favor of Jameson Williams this week.
Well, easy. That's an easy one. If you don't know, no one knows, because you are the radio voice of Wisconsin. But see, this is the bias. To see our gentleman asking the question here, he's biased because he's just loves Jaden Reed. It's like I really appreciate Michael Pittman. I think Michael Pittman has a pretty solid game, but I doubt if he'll get in my lineups much this week. It's the Deebo Samuel. It's been a terrible, terrible year. Ray McLeod's on waiver wire, and Ray's got more yards receiving than Deebo Samuel does this year. The Baltimore Ravens fans will tell you, we love Flowers. We just, we kind of shrug at Bateman. Look up their stats. It's the same guy. They're the same guy. I think Bateman's actually scored more touchdowns. So that's what's in our mind. This is an easy choice. Jameson Williams, get him on the field. This is what you need, because, Buffalo's going to do what they can do best, is try to take away that run and pressure that quarterback. Ball's going to leave the quarterback's hands very quickly. It's going to be with Williams, and he's going to run after the catch. That's the easiest one we'll get all week.
Tight end question here from Dave in San Antonio. It's going to be Juwan Johnson or Kyle Pitts this week, Ferrell. Kyle Pitts is listen, I'm kind of out on him going forward, and maybe I'm one of the last people to be out on him going forward. But for the people that did draft him this year as their back end tight end one, and then maybe they got Juwan Johnson later, how do you feel about these two players this week when you consider Kyle Pitts is on the road against your Las Vegas Raiders, and then you have Juwan Johnson at home against the Washington Commanders with Jake Haener in at quarterback? Which tight end would you rather deploy?
I think Jake will be smart to get this ball in his tight end's hands. There's just a lot of tight end talent that gets on the field down there. So I'm going to go Pitts against the Raiders, a team that Atlanta must win a game against. And the Raiders are really, really slim in the defensive side, and they're having a hard time. Executing the kind of defense that they want to run. Now, if Pitts doesn't do it this week, let's say never again.
I'm already at never again.
And I can understand why everyone is. I truly am. I can understand. But he has the chance to, and the way we're going to win now, we're not playing head-to-head. We're playing to catch Ron.
Right.
And you're not going to catch Ron with Juwan Johnson sharing his multiple tight end situations. And his multiple tight ends on his roster. But with Pitts, you got a chance.
I said never again, Ferrell.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw this at you. The Kyle Pitts supporters, the Kyle Pitts stands, as the kids say, you know what their excuse is going to be in 2025. Oh, Kirk Cousins isn't the quarterback anymore. Now we got Michael Penix. Penix is going to unlock Kyle Pitts. I'm just realizing – I'm saying this as I'm realizing it right now. So Kyle Pitts yet again has another excuse locked in 2025. We'll see what happens.
I wish we could get a little Penix before the year's over.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that for sure. Bill Hollywood, our mutual friend, receiver question here. Who's going to have a better week 15? Is it Zay Flowers or is it Amari Cooper? Now, again, Amari Cooper is on the road in Detroit with this 54.5-point game. I get it. You want to start as many Bills and Lions as you possibly can this week. Yet Zay Flowers is going to be on the road against the Giants in a negative game script. The biggest point spread we have seen in 2024, with the Ravens being a 16.5-point favorite against the Giants. And you say, well, Balky, why would the Ravens throw it to Zay Flowers? They won't have to. Well, they might do it in the first half. And that's the question here. Do we play Zay Flowers in a game where his team should dominate, or are we playing Amari Cooper in a game where both teams should be throwing the ball a lot to keep up with each other? This is a great question from Bill Hollywood here.
What Flowers does will look really, really good in the film and the highlights. What Cooper does will look better in your score. Go ahead and play Cooper in a chaser game. They're going to have him perform. And, we like getting – where are they playing this game, Balky?
Which one? The Bills and
the Bills.
That's in Detroit.
Yeah, we like getting players inside on the carpet. And that's a very, very big thing. Here, you're playing that Giants team that's perfect 0-7. You don't know what that's going to look like and who's going to play in it, and we talked about this with Flowers, and I'm a big Flowers fan. I said he's the player in the league that most reminds me of Tyreek Hill, but a big successful year, successful year for Flowers. Is 60 catches, and if he got to 75, it would just be magical. And where is he now, Balky? Can you tell us? I know we're not rapid firing anymore.
No, we're not.
Yeah, but I would
know where he's at on the season.
Yeah, total catches so far with 3 games left, because I don't think he's going to get to 75. I don't think.
So right now, we're looking at 60 catches for him.
Well, he might. Yeah, he might.
So there is a chance. You have he's got 4 weeks.
But he'll get there then. So, and that's a magical season for Flowers.
And I'll tell you this too. He's going to get to 1,000 yards. He's only 137 yards away from 1,000 yards. I shouldn't say he's going to get there. I feel pretty confident saying he's going to get there. Only 4 touchdowns on the season, Ferrell. This means that he's probably going to be a nice little buy in 2025.
Oh yeah. Don't ever quit on him. He's always drafted a little higher than his production. 1,000 yards for a receiver in this is not that much anymore.
Right, exactly.
65 yards a game. 60 yards. I don't know math.
We're not going to get into math on the show.
Not going to get
late in the show. But I'll bring up this quarterback question from Sam in Bridgeport, New York. Justin Herbert practiced in full today. And he is no longer on the injury report. He is a full go against Tampa this week. Ferrell, would you play him against the Buccaneers this week? Or, as Sam in Bridgeport is asking us, would you play Bo Nix this week?
Sam, you better get that Bo Nix in your lineup. You better do it very, very quickly. Okay. It's McConkey. Without McConkey, and if he gets McConkey, better. If he doesn't, he's a 200-something yard passer. Nix is your easy play here. Herbert barely got drafted very late because the coach is going to run the ball. Well, he's going to have to continue to run the ball. The 200 yards from Herbert without McConkey, 250 with him is a big thing.
McConkey is questionable right now. I say, hey, practice limited all week last week. He should be good to go. Well, that's what happened last week.
Oh, it was
Conkey didn't
heartbreaking.
play. So yeah, it stinks. Knicks is a 4.5-point favorite at home against the Colts this week in a 44-point total that we're looking at in the late window on Sunday afternoon. The last question we have this week is from, I have it right here, Jeff in Newark. Isaiah Pacheco or Tyrone Tracy, Ferrell, this week. If you can only play one of these running backs, is it going to be Pacheco, who is obviously going up against the Cleveland Browns? Or is it going to be Tyrone Tracy, who is going up against the Ravens in a massive negative game script? But we do know Tyrone Tracy, one of his calling cards coming out of the University of Iowa last year was catching passes. He should have the opportunity to do that. With no Drew Lock at quarterback this week, it's going to be Tommy DeVito. You have one choice here, Pacheco or Tracy. Which path are you going down?
They've got to move the chains to get the first downs to keep hitting the running back to get the volume, and I don't think they'll do it. You think about this: you got one of the greatest quarterbacks in football. He's not having the fantasy football year we want. He's handing the ball to Pacheco, the hardest runner, who's recovered from that injury and has fresh legs, and Kansas City is really looking to get out and win a game beyond what will come down to a game-winning field goal against this team. Yeah, you're going to play Pacheco here, and you love the athlete in Tracy, but you're just going to get little small samples of what Tracy can do. Pacheco is going to be leaned on by this team, and don't even think about it.
I am a weak man. I've said this before. When it comes down to decisions like this, and I would never encourage people to adopt the same philosophy I have to this, but I always look at it: who am I going to be more ticked off if I sit him on the bench? Which is a terrible way to look at it.
You can't live with yourself, Buck.
No, it's a terrible way to play fantasy football. But I'm going to tell you this: if I bench Tyrone Tracy and in favor of Isaiah Pacheco and Tracy goes off, I'm kind of like shrugging my shoulders, like that's fantasy. But if I bench Pacheco and he goes off and Tracy does nothing, I will be like, why am I even playing this? So for me, I am playing Pacheco, and I will live with the consequences at that point. So that's how I fall in on it. And I'm glad we took separate pass, Ferrell. Yeah. We're arriving at the same point here. And over Tracy.
We did.
Speaking of arriving at the same point, we want to arrive in Louisville, Louisville, Kentucky, Southern Indiana, Caesars Casino in Southern Indiana for the Super Sunday. The drafting that is going to be going on the Saturday of Super Bowl weekend. The drafting that's going to be going on the day of the Super Bowl this coming February, when undoubtedly my Green Bay Packers will be playing in the game. I don't know how. I just have a feeling. In any event, that is the place to be. KFFSC.com. Go ahead, register for those drafts, book your flight, get your hotel, and draft. Like you already said last week, we are over half full on these drafts, and there's going to be a lot of FFPC and KFFSC luminaries.
Tom Smith joined tonight.
Tom Smith, there you go, who is sitting in, I think he was sitting in the top 20 heading into the championship round of the FFPC main event. So he'll be drafting there. A lot of these really talented players, you can pick their brains, you can compete against them, and maybe win big prizes in the KFFSC. KFFSC.com is where to go. It's going to be a really fun event, man.
Thank you, Balky. Yeah, we will. Our viewing party is a big blast once all the draft is over, and it's just a great time to be together. I used to, for 14 years straight. Sometimes I would go to Super Bowl week in the city and do the work, and then I would leave for Las Vegas, and that's where I spent it for 14 years. And I wanted to come with something, tradition for our people, and we're getting there. I think everybody, and it's a $10,000 grand prize this year. My buddy Fenton starts the week in first place. We have guys that play in both leagues that are doing very, very well in it, and have multiple teams in it. So we're going to look forward to seeing anyone and everyone who wants to be there, and it's It's our third one, and we're looking for our biggest crowd yet.
I would say this too, for like the high stakes industry, like this is your kickoff for 2025. It is the KFFSC and getting things underway. I've drafted in it before. I've loved the value I've gotten on certain rookies. If you want to fade rookies, you can build a juggernaut that way too. It is a wide open competition, and it's a lot of fun each and every year. Register now, kffsc.com. Ferrell, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I apologize for the late start. I'm going to be calling TDS right when we get up.
No
not
apology needed
morning.
for you, Balky. A good thing is always worth waiting for. And I hope you please come this year because, math isn't my thing. This is actually our 4th year. But nevertheless, Balky, we want you there.
Thank you, Ferrell. I appreciate you so much, and I will talk to you again this time next week.
See you, buddy.
That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football over at KFFSC.com. I want to thank him, Ron Ybarra, the 16th place overall finisher in the FFPC main event regular season, who has his not delusions of grandeur, a guy who could win the $1 million grand prize this year in the FFPC main event. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, of course, each and every one of you. We will be back at 10 o'clock this coming Friday, a week from today, with the Fantasy Pros Championship 35th place team, 35th place overall finisher in the regular season, Tommy Heron, Tommy Island. For those of you who are fans of the show, Tommy Island makes his return to the broadcast next week. That's going to be a lot of fun. In case you missed the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown this past Tuesday, I interviewed 20th place overall finisher in the regular season of the FFPC main event, Mark Davidson. He had a lot of great stuff to say about competing for a $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event. You can watch that on any of the FFPC socials. We will be back with the High Stakes Lowdown this Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Last night, we had on the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, Bradley Stalder from Player Profiler, a guy who plays in the FFPC Pros versus Joes every single year. He hosts the Stack Hunters program with longtime FFPC player Dan Williamson, and he also hosts the Man versus Machine podcast on the Player Profiler network with Ryan Reynolds from Establish the Run. That is a great show. We got into a lot of stuff with him leading into the Thursday night broadcast last night, Thursday night football broadcast last night. And we also got a lot of great stuff from him. If you are playing in the FFPC Weekly Challenge in what players to choose, remember those lineups lock at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Sunday. We will be back with the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show with Doug Orth from Fantasy Points and FF Today, 7 o'clock this coming Thursday, only on the FFPC family of networks, as well as the Better Sports Network socials too. Now, play the FFPC Weekly Challenge, obviously for week 15. No draft, no salary cap. You can draft whatever, or you can choose whatever players you want, just no duplicates. If you want to get Tommy DeVito, you can't have Malik Neighbors. If you want to have Will Levis, you can't have Chiga Conquo. One player per team, essentially, on this lineup. 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. Enter for as little as $35. Win up to $2,500 in 10, 30, or 100 team contests. That's available at myffpc.com. The one thing I forgot to bring on tonight was the launch of the world famous FFPC playoff challenges. Those are live right now. You can register and play fantasy football until hell freezes over. You can enter for $35 and win up to $100,000 grand prize, or you can enter for $200 and win up to a $500,000 grand prize. myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Get those entrants or get those entries listed right now. Pay for those entries. We don't know who the playoff teams will be yet, but I can tell you that these contests usually sell out every single year. So the earlier you can get these entries set aside and build these teams after the playoff field is set, the better off you're going to be. So register now, myffpc.com. Again, myffpc.com for both the weekly challenge and the world famous FFPC playoff challenges. KFFSC.com is where to go to play in the Super Sunday contest coming up, Super Bowl weekend of 2025. Hey, listen, we're like 2 months away from that. It is coming up super fast. Register now, kffsc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified so you know each and every time we go live, which will be coming up Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time for the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. This show will go live again at 10 p.m. this coming Friday. We're going to have a great show for you coming up into the second week of the FFPC Main Event and FantasyPros Championship round, as well as the KFFSC Main Event Championship round. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope we helped you, and I hope the ball bounces your way in Week 15 of the NFL. Thank you so much for watching. Your weekend officially starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Live. This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for putting up with so many technical difficulties on the show tonight. I apologize for the late start. I don't know what happened with my internet. It's been awful. And I'm so thankful that it actually came together where we didn't have like choppy video or anything tonight, which was great. Thanks so much for watching and putting up with everything tonight. I truly hope the ball bounces your way, whether you're playing in the FFPC, the KFFSC, private leagues, your home leagues, or whatever. We are into the fantasy playoffs. Let's make this a season to remember. Go out and get it, and tell us all about it here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We will rejoin you again next week, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, with Tommy Island, Tommy Heron, Ferrell Elliott, and myself, bringing a Bafo show together for you a week from today. Good luck in Week 15, and enjoy it, everybody.